James and Mary lived in a small, cozy cottage on the outskirts of town. Despite their modest means, they were content with their simple life. James worked as a carpenter, crafting beautiful furniture from reclaimed wood. Mary tended to their garden, nurturing vibrant flowers and lush vegetables. Next door, in a grand mansion, lived Michael, a wealthy businessman. His life was a stark contrast to James and Mary's. Michael's wife had left him years ago, and his children were busy with their own lives. Michael's wealth couldn't fill the void in his heart. One day, while admiring Mary's garden, Michael noticed her kindness and beauty. He began to weave a sinister plan to manipulate her. She deserves better than that poor carpenter, he thought. Michael started with small gestures. He'd offer Mary expensive gardening tools, praising her green thumb. He'd invite her to his mansion for tea, flaunting his opulent lifestyle. Mary, unaware of his intentions, politely accepted his gifts and invitations. James grew suspicious. "Mary, why is Michael being so generous?" he asked. "He's just being friendly, James," Mary replied. "Besides, it's nice to have someone appreciate my gardening." But James's concerns lingered. He noticed Michael's lingering gazes at Mary, the way he'd find excuses to touch her hand. James knew his wife's innocence and kindness made her vulnerable to manipulation. As time passed, Michael's tactics escalated. He'd make subtle comments about James's inability to provide for Mary. "You deserve better, Mary. James can't give you the life you deserve." Mary began to doubt her husband's capabilities. She'd compare their simple life to Michael's luxury. James sensed the change in her and confronted her. "Mary, what's wrong? You seem distant," James said, his voice laced with concern. "It's just, Michael says we could have a better life," Mary replied, her voice barely above a whisper. James's heart sank. "Mary, we may not have wealth, but we have each other. That's all we need." But Mary's doubts had taken root. She started to wonder if James was truly enough. One evening, Michael invited Mary to his mansion for dinner. James was working late, and Mary accepted, thinking it would be a harmless gathering. At the dinner table, Michael poured champagne and flaunted his wealth. "Mary, you deserve this life. Leave James and come with me. I'll give you everything you've ever wanted." Mary's eyes widened in shock. She realized Michael's true intentions and felt a surge of guilt for doubting James. "Michael, I'm happy with James. We may not have your wealth, but we have love," Mary said firmly. Michael's face turned red with anger. "You're foolish, Mary. You're wasting your life with that poor carpenter." Mary stood up, her eyes shining with tears. "I'd rather have a life of love and simplicity with James than a life of luxury without him." As she walked back to her cottage, Mary felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She realized that Michael's manipulation had almost destroyed her relationship with James. James, sensing her distress, wrapped his arms around her. "I'm here, Mary. We'll face whatever comes our way, together." The next morning, James and Mary confronted Michael. "Michael, we know your game. Leave us alone," James said firmly. Michael sneered, but James and Mary stood united. They had protected their love and happiness from his manipulation. As they walked back to their cottage, hand in hand, James whispered, "We may not have wealth, but we have something far more valuable, our love and each other." Mary smiled, knowing that their bond was unbreakable. From that day on, James and Mary lived even more contentedly. They tended to their garden together, watching their love grow stronger with each passing day. Michael, on the other hand, realized too late that his wealth couldn't buy happiness. His attempts to manipulate Mary had only highlighted his own emptiness. As the seasons passed, James and Mary's love continued to flourish, a beacon of hope in a world where wealth and material possessions often overshadowed true happiness.